Ok, estamos en vivo.
Hello, guys, to those on Zoom and who may potentially view us on YouTube. Um, I'm glad to see y'all again and to be able to study a little bit the lesson that was designed for this week. Before we start, I wanted to have a word of prayer. I don't know, Evan, if you want to go ahead and pray.
We'll go ahead and pray then. Padre nuestro que está en los cielos, santificado sea tu nombre, Señor. Te agradecemos porque podemos estar aquí en Zoom y aprender más de la lección que nos has dado, Señor, para poder estudiar y aprender más de ti, tu palabra, Señor. Pedimos que nos puedas ayudar, que tu Espíritu Santo pueda estar enseñándonos cosas que no sabíamos, Señor, y que podemos aprender y acercarnos más a ti, Señor. Pedimos por todos los que se van a meter a Zoom y los que no, que también los ayudes en su vida espiritual, Señor. Te pido todo en nombre de Cristo Jesús. Amén.
All right. So just because of what I'm seeing, this is not something that y'all have to do, but I'm gonna try it myself. And if y'all want to, I think it would be a good idea as well, just to invite somebody, for a Saturday to join us in the meeting, so that we can share. It doesn't necessarily have to be like a new person, but I know that as Jóvenes, we like to do a lot of other things, but it would be nice also to be able to share with others. So keep that in mind. And personally, I'm gonna try that. Just to throughout the week, at some point, contact somebody and be like, "Hey, join us on Zoom," so that they can hear the lesson as well. We're gonna start with a little story, kind of like a misionero for the, I guess, Escuela Sabática. And Ivan's gonna share his screen and read the story to us.
All right, Manu, I don't know if you can help me be able to screen share.
It says host disabled participant screen sharing. I don't know if there's any way that can get that fixed. If not, we'll just, I guess you can read it.
No, let me, sorry.
Yeah.
Okay, it's allowing us.
All right, so personally, I'm gonna be honest, I don't have a lesson, but I usually just read it online and I read it in English, so it like at the end adds a little like misionero type thing. So, and I thought this one was interesting. I mean, they were all interesting, but I don't know, I guess just something
New.
new for today. So I'm gonna go ahead and read it, and I hope y'all can read it if y'all like to or hear it. So it's called Running for God, and you can see that the person's name is on there, and the person to the right is the picture of him. So it says, running brought me to church in Poland. As a young man, I started bodybuilding because the doctor cautioned me to take measures to improve my health. Then I got into long distance running. I loved it. I ran marathons, 62-mile races, and even a 24-hour run over 126 miles. I joined a group of runners who trained together several times a week. After a while, I noticed that Piotr, a runner in our group, missed our training sessions every Saturday. I couldn't understand why, and I finally asked him. I've been thinking about the meaning of life, Piotr replied. I've been reading the Bible and I've been going to several churches to find one that follows the Bible. Now I've found such a church. Would you like to study the Bible with us? The Bible studies led by a SDA pastor confused me. I consider myself to be a devout Christian and I belong to another denomination. One day, while we were running, Piotr shocked me with a question. Did you know that your clergy aren't telling you the truth, he said. Now you've gone too far, I exclaimed. You're mixed up. The next time we meet, I'll bring a Bible, Piotr said. You bring your church's book of doctrines, we'll see where the truth lies. The proposal seemed good to me. I had always tried to live a truthful life and to follow the truth that I knew. At our next meeting, Piotr and I compared the two books. I was stunned to realize that my book didn't match the teachings of the Bible. Several months later, I was baptized. I was 45. It felt good to join a church whose members, just like me, cared about their health. Soon I noticed that several church members didn't eat meat. I researched the plant-based diet and also quit eating meat. Before I saw my body as my own and exploited it for my own desires. Now I understand that my body is not my own. I try not to damage it. It is God's temple. Today, at the age of 71, running remains a major part of my life, although I have stopped training and competing on Sabbath. Running is an ideal way to spread the gospel. After a marathon, everyone feels good about their accomplishments, and it is easy to talk about God. I share who gives me strength to run at my age. I run at least 3 times a week, 6 miles each time. It takes me about 55 minutes. I run in forest and in nature. I think about my life and think about God. I hum hymns and remember Bible verses. I pray for God to bring someone into my path so I can talk about him. He brings people to me. So this is a small missionary story. I mean, it's not small. It's, you can see how big, God worked in this man's life. I know it's not part of the lesson, but I don't know if somebody has any comments regarding the little mission story.
I was sharing with that, and I was like, that's pretty impressive. Because look at, I was telling him this man is 71, right, and he runs 6 miles 3 times a week. I'm like, wow. I we struggle to do exercise. You know, like even today we're gonna attempt some little hike, and I'm pretty sure we're gonna get tired, and we're not gonna even get close to. I think he's ran what he says a 24-hour marathon. And I don't know. It's really interesting the way he has been able to share the gospel because um, you know he's doing something that is completely secular, right? So completely just like an extracurricular activity. So I think it's just a reminder of whatever we do like. You can stop the share. Whatever you do like to do, there's always a way in anything to share what's in the Bible, and there's a lot, of important things in there. And this week we're studying prophecy. It might be a little redundant. You may feel some parts, but it's necessary. And I just wanted to get started on it, ask a simple question, right? Which is, why is prophecy so important? Like, can anybody share maybe an answer of why it is so important?
I guess I'll give my personal opinion. I think it's important because I think, well, as we have seen, prophecy has been fulfilled in the past, with the prophets prophesied, and in the same way, we have prophecies in the Bible of the future, which will be fulfilled, and it just helps us better prepare for those days. I think the biggest prophecy, is that Jesus is going to come for a second time, and
Yeah.
it's something that we all are waiting for, and the Bible, gives us the steps to prepare for that.
Okay.
I feel like that's why it's important.
So for sure, we see that the key verse in Daniel 8:14 brings an interesting fact, right? And it's important to understand prophecy in the right way, and to be able to look at it through a good view, to be able to um, get what it's teaching us and how it applies to both or all three, the past, present, and future. El historicismo es una de esas cosas que viene hablando también la lección, que básicamente tiene que ver con el hecho de que la profecía en la Biblia, las historias, se comienzan a desarrollar desde cierto punto y continuamente llegan hasta el futuro, y culmina todo con básicamente el fin del plan de salvación. So, vamos a comenzar a ver un poquito cómo es que unas de esas profecías, algunas de esas cosas que encontramos en la profecía, tiene tanto impacto en nuestras creencias como adventistas, como cristianos. no sé si quisiéramos avanzar, bueno, hay que avanzar a lo que sería el día del domingo, que habla un poquito más acerca del historicismo y la profecía.
All right, so if y'all would like to, we're gonna read Daniel chapter 2. We're gonna read 32 through 35 and then 38 through 45. So Daniel 2, 32 to 35, and then 38 through 45. So 32 says this. Starting with 32, it says, "The head of the statue was made of fine gold. Its chest and arms were silver. Its belly and thighs were bronze. Its legs were iron, and its feet were a combination of iron and baked clay. As you watched, a rock was cut from a mountain, but not by human hands. It struck the feet of iron and clay, smashing them to bits. Then the whole statue was crushed into small pieces of iron, clay, bronze, silver, and gold. Then the wind blew them away without a trace, like a chaff on the threshing floor. But the rock that knocked the statue down became a great mountain that covered the whole earth." So 38 through 45 says, "He had made you the ruler over all the inhabited world, and has put even the wild animals and birds under your control. You are the head of gold. But after your kingdom comes to an end, another kingdom inferior to yours will rise to take your place. After that kingdom has fallen, yet a third kingdom represented by bronze will rise to rule the world. Following that kingdom, there will be a fourth one, as strong as iron. That kingdom will smash and crush all previous empires, just as iron smashes and crushes everything it strikes. The feet and toes you saw were a combination of iron and baked clay, showing that this kingdom will be divided. Like iron mixed with clay, it will have some strength of iron, but while some parts of it will be as strong as iron, other parts will be as weak as clay. This mixture of iron and clay also shows that these kingdoms will try to strengthen themselves by forming alliances with each other through intermarriage. But they will not hold together, just as iron and clay do not mix. During the reigns of those kings, the God of heaven will set up a kingdom that will never be destroyed or conquered. It will crush all these kingdoms into nothingness, and it will stand forever. That is the meaning of the rock cut from the mountain, though not by human hands, that crushed to pieces the statue of iron, bronze, clay, silver, and gold. The great God was showing the king what will happen in the future. The dream is is true, and the meaning is certain." So we most of us have already read, this chapter of Daniel 2. But on this day of Sunday, it makes reference to how we actually like interpret prophecy. And there's many ways actually that people actually interpret prophecy, and it's pretty interesting how they do it. I mean, there's some that when they hear prophecy, they're like, "Oh, that happened, a long time ago, so we don't have to worry about it." There's others that will say, "Oh, that's not till like far into the future." And there's other people that are just like, "Oh, that prophecy, that's not a prophecy. It's just something like um, something to help you in your life. Like if you're struggling with something, they're gonna be like, oh, it's just telling you that you need forgiveness or something like that."
Kind of like a parable or something,
Right.
so you can get some teaching out of it.
Right. So then, what us at Seventh Day Adventists we do, we see prophecy as act of history, like throughout history. So as when we read Daniel 2, we see that these symbols actually happen in history. Like the head of gold was Babylon. The next, the chest was Medio Persia. Uh, the other one was Greece, and then Rome, and eventually we'll see the papacy. But that's what we see through the day of Sunday. That it tells us about how to interpret Bible prophecy the right way.
Yeah, there's like no gap in between it. We're able to prove with the history that we learn even in school how these kingdoms came and went. The statue is I was having like you can simply see it as it's not, by parts. It's a continuous statue. It's a continuous story where if you read carefully, you're able to see the words, like the transition words. So it's all uh, a straight line, and the a lot of people will have a problem with um, this because it's just simply they don't want to accept what's it leading to. And I want us to just quickly read Juan 14:29, John 14:29, and it says, "And now I have told you before it comes, so that when it does come to pass, you may believe." Right? The question there says, ¿qué dice Jesús que nos ayuda a entender cómo puede funcionar la profecía? My answer was, da con anticipación la historia, which is, what he revealed to Daniel, para comprobarla mientras sucede, right? This is a funny illustration, but I wanted to share it because I heard it, and I'm just gonna make it up to adapt to make it my own. But like assume, right? I invite y'all to come to my house, right? And I tell y'all, you know what? Like I moved houses wherever y'all know I live. Like I don't live there no more. So I'm giving you new instructions, right? And I tell you, just get onto I-45 South, heading towards Galveston, right? Just go all the way down. Go like if you're going to the beach right there, Stewart Beach, and you go probably like 1 mile to the left. You're gonna find this huge wall there, and you just gotta like go straight to it, and it's gonna open up, and you're gonna see like a golden tunnel that goes underground. And you're gonna go in that tunnel, and you're gonna go underground. You're gonna travel for like 2 to 3 miles, and then you're gonna find like a clearing, right? And you're gonna see like this huge, gigantic purple crocodile, and you're gonna go and you're gonna turn to the left of it. You're gonna advance, and you're finally gonna reach this opening where you see a whole new world, right? And as soon as you see that whole new world, this big mountain is gonna you're gonna be able to see this big mountain on the left, and there's like a little trail that leads up to it, and I live like right there on the top, right? And it sounds crazy, right? It's like, man, you know what, I might even, but you go and you're like, you know what, let me go check this out. Like, let me just go see if, because I need to see him. I don't know where Marlon's at, so I'm gonna go visit him. So I just gotta follow his instructions, right? And you go and you take I-45, you go to the left, you find that wall, and you're just like, and it opens up, and you go through a golden tunnel, and then a little bit after you find a huge crocodile, right? And you turn left, and then you see a light, and then you see this clearing, right? You're like, man, this is crazy, right? And then you get to that clearing, and then you see the mountain, right? So if you're in that situation, right, and you see all of that, when you see that mountain and that little trail, Joanna, would you take the little trail? Like, because I live there at the top? Well, I don't know. What do you think?
I mean, I feel like I would take the little trail just because you said that's where you live. So might as well take the trail. Like I already went that whole way there, so why stop?
Right. And not only that, like
And
you didn't go the whole way. Like you went through, right? And you saw these crazy things, and you
yeah,
didn't believe it, right? You didn't believe it, but they were there. So that's what God has done with the story and the prophecy, right? Like whenever you think about the statue, right? And in a situation like that, it's totally fictional, but you feel like, if I was there, I would believe that. I would definitely believe that because I was able to test it and I was able to see it. But that's what's happening now. We're able to know and study and see that everything, step by step, has taken place like God has said it will happen. So it's just like interesting to think that why then now we don't want to explore the end or believe what that's leading to. So it's just something to keep the teachings, like whenever you are studying prophecy, to keep in mind so that it has a bigger impact in your life. um anyway, on Monday, I want us to read the Numbers 14:34, los versos de Números 14:34 y Ezequiel 4:6. Do you have numbers by any chance?
Yeah.
Okay. if you want to go ahead, or if anybody wants to read it, Numbers 14:34.
Yeah, I read it. It says, according to the number of the days in which you spied out the land, 40 days, for each you shall bear your guilt 1 year, namely 40 years, and you shall know my rejection.
Okay. And then we have Daniel 2.
Ezekiel.
Oh, sorry, Ezekiel 4:6.
And that one says, and when you have completed them, lie again on your right side. Then you shall bear the iniquity of the house of Judah 40 days. I have laid on you a day for each year.
So we can see, I think many of us can see that a day here, it shows that a day equals a year. So I just want to go ahead and show some quick examples of where we can see that this is true, like where we could put, a day equals a year. Because it's not always like that, like like if it says somebody lived for this long, doesn't mean, if they live for 2 days, doesn't mean they live 2 years,
It applies like specifically to prophecy.
Yeah. So if y'all could go to Daniel 7:25. I'll go ahead and read it. It says, he will defy the Most High and oppress holy people of the Most High. He will try to change their sacred festivals and laws, and they will be placed under his control for a time, times, and half a time. So here we see that, the times and half a time, they represent days. I don't have it clear in my head what those days are, but these are not literal days, they're actually symbolizing to years. And if we go on to Daniel 8:14, it says, the other replied, it will take 2,300 evenings and mornings, then the temple will be made right again. So here again we see 2,300 even mornings, which could also mean days. It's not actually literal days, but it will be years. And it'd be pretty crazy to think, literal days. Well, not crazy, I don't think that's the right word, but I think I'll be misinterpreting what the Bible is actually saying. So
and so the Bible clearly states, día por año, año por día. But I don't know, I'm gonna call out my sister. Would you have any other idea, or if you got it from the lesson, why else when we study prophecy, we should take into account that it's not literal days, for example, in these, like, do you know of any other reasons why you wouldn't take that literally?
Yeah, so I think in the lesson, it says also that in the stories that it describes, and it says time periods, it uses a lot of symbolism, and not everything is literal. So if you don't take, say for the beasts, for example, if you don't take that as literal, why are you going to take the days as literal days? Everything is figurative. So that's where you need to know that the days are also figurative and actually mean years.
Yeah, that's one of those three elements that's in the lesson, right? The use of symbols, the fact that are there really like these beasts with que tienen un all the strange beasts in Apocalypse and Daniel that you see like in prophecy, those are not real. They're not. You would think of them as fictional beings, and there's also these long time lapses, so or time periods that are covered in the prophecy. So it's just another way of basically scaling history and the events tied to it. There's also the strange expressions that we see in prophecy. So in all of this, we see that nothing is literal. So like nobody really, like if somebody asks me, hey, do you want to hang out? I'll be like, yeah, I'll see you in like after, I don't know, 7.5 afternoons. Like nobody talks like that, right? Like I'll be like, yeah, I'll go Monday, or So it would raise the question, like, what is really going on here? What does it really mean? And that's just more evidence to support the fact that that's how we should interpret it. We actually, I don't know if
No, no.
no, it's not there. Okay. Yeah. So just keep that in mind. I don't know if anybody wants to add anything else, but that's basically what Monday brings. And we can read also in Daniel 7. I think it's Daniel, and we'll just read verses 23 to 25 because 1 through 25 is really long, and for the point I want to make, just 23 to 25. It says, thus he said, the fourth beast shall be a fourth kingdom on earth, which shall be different from all the other kingdoms, and shall devour the whole earth, trample it, and break it in pieces. The 10 horns are 10 kings, who shall arise from this kingdom, and another shall rise after them. He shall be different from the first one, and shall subdue 3 kings. He shall speak pompous words against the Most High, shall persecute the saints of the Most High, and shall intend to change times and the law. Then the saints shall be given into his hand for a time and times and half a time. There's also chapter 8, and that's verses 9 through 12. It says, and out of one of them came a little horn, which grew exceedingly great towards the south, towards the east, and towards the glorious land. And it grew up to the host of heaven, and it cast down some of the host and some of the stars to the ground, and trampled them. He even exalted himself as high as the prince of the host. And by him the daily sacrifices were taken away, and the place of his sanctuary was cast down. Because of the transgression, an army was given over the horn to oppose the daily sacrifices and cast truth down to the ground. He did all this and prospered. So this is just a little part of the text that we see in Daniel 7 and 8, where it talks about how eventually throughout time we're going to see a power that was going to surge, and that power was this little horn. So as we read through this, like, what are some of the things, or how can we know who the little horn is? Reading these, I chose those parts just to read out, if anybody wants to just call out what they heard there. How can we identify this little horn? Joanna, I know you have something there. Did you catch on to any of it? Maybe? No? Becky?
So the whole thing that he tried to take over God's people, and then something about the prince, he tried over the prince. I've always said that, or thought that, if it looks like a dog and it barks like a dog and walks like a dog, it's a dog, So if you see all these things that it says that this little horn will do, and then you see the people who are doing it, why would you doubt that that's who they are? I don't know if that made any sense.
Yeah. There's also the fact that we know, that the power that came, or the one in power after Greece was Rome, which was the fourth beast. When we study that part of the prophecy, we know that it's Rome. And in another part, it also says, right, that little horn came from the fourth beast. So if you think about what's another like great power that's within Rome, right? That's pretty obvious when you ask that question. It's like you know that's the papacy. There's no other power that came from within Rome. And like the verse says also, he was speaking pompous words. He went against the saints of the Lord. He tried to change times and the law, right? And though we know other religious people and just religions in general, we know for a fact that the one power or person that has actually thought of himself as a highly exalted and powerful enough to change that is the Pope and the papacy. So there's no doubt in that case that that little horn, that power that was going to destroy and persecute God's people is um, through Rome, the papacy. I don't know if you have anything to add on that, or if anybody else wants to comment.
I guess for viewers that watch this or are watching, I think also that another thing, why I said it's just, I mean, if you really look like I like what Becky said, but if you really look at the Pope, he wants to act as a mediator between us and God, right? The whole religion has set up that, the priest can forgive your sins. You go confess them to them and they'll forgive them, right? And even if you read the Catholic priest manual, it'll tell you that, I mean, they have that power according to them, right? And I mean, it's one of the only persons, who tries to
Take the place of Jesus.
take the place of Jesus here, and the Bible tells us that our only mediator is Jesus, right? We only got to confess our sins to him. He's the only one who came and died here for our sins. The Pope didn't do anything. And that's why our sins are only supposed to be confessed to Jesus himself, And I mean, there's many other reasons, like you said, also, Marlon, Rome is the only power that has remained, and when it comes to the mixture, the Pope has remained. And there's a lot to it, I mean, but it definitely, I mean, if you look at all the characteristics of the Pope, and I guess you'll start matching, everything what the Bible says.
Yeah, it's pretty difficult not to see it unless you know nothing about the Pope and the papacy, right? Um, I should have looked for it, but I know I've read and I've heard um, of a some sort of writing where it clearly states, that basically the papacy or the Pope or the Catholic Church or the Roman Catholic um, were able to and had the power and did change the day of worship from Saturday to Sunday, right? So actually, and a lot of people don't know that. They just kind of they know they go to church on Sundays, but they never stop to think about what has happened and have never gotten to study probably these parts of the Bible or just haven't given it much thought. So that's pretty clear. And if you want to go on in to Wednesday.
So on Wednesday, what does anybody want to say anything else about anything we've done? So then on Wednesday, it talks about the investigative judgment. So I know that, growing up, like, it was a pretty tough thing to understand. Honestly, I didn't even want to understand it, if I'm being honest. But it's actually very interesting because, like Seventh-day Adventist Church, it came from this investigative judgment. It came from prophecy, and so it's a pretty important thing to know. And honestly, when you know it, it makes you think like, man, like, God's pretty real. Like, he really, and the fact that we have the Bible, like, and say this in his before, like, um before it happened, like, it's just so crazy that it's happening. It's real.
Yeah.
So we have a little, well, I have a little picture here from last lesson from Daniel.
I even tried to replicate it.
Yeah.
He did it. I don't know if y'all can see.
It's backwards.
Yeah, it's backwards. So I was like, "Hey, bro, just draw it out." And then we tried it, and we're like, "Wait." Like you would understand this if you just were able to see it. You would understand everything. But he's just gonna like talk a little bit about it and share his screen. But
so here's the picture right here. So so this will be the picture here. I think most of us have seen it. But I just want to go over it real quick. Well, so it says, so we can see all this happen mainly in the book of Daniel. Um, so it goes from 457 BC all the way to AD 1844. So I have a calculator here because I'm not good at math. Okay. So if we go from 457 here and then you add right here, no, subtract. So minus 2300, it wouldn't be days, it would be years, right? Because we just went there. So it will be 1843, right? But there's a year that is counted as zero, which would make it 1844, and that is when the great disappointment, where
The Gran Chasco, I think that's the church basically. It was at that time, because they had read in Daniel where they saw that after 2,300 what would be years, the sanctuary would be purified. They just misunderstood it. They thought, oh no, 1844 is when Jesus is coming. Like that's what that means. Um, but from that is that when they saw that they started studying more, and they were like, no, something else happening. Jesus didn't come, and um, the movement of what we know now as the Adventist Church came to be.
right. So then, so on that thing is Daniel 9 that talks a lot about this, and this whole 2,300 years, there's a lot of things that actually happen in here, and we can see the 69 weeks. That is, if we do 457 minus 483 years again, will be minus 26. But since we just went through that, the year zero, we counted, so it'll be AD 27, which would show, Jesus being baptized. And if we do the same thing for 490, it will go to AD 34, and that's when Stephen was stoned. And it also makes reference to a 7-year period that the Messiah will be cut off, and that's where we see Jesus crucified.
Yeah, and it's just crazy because like how I was saying earlier, this was given, before it all happened. The vision was given to Daniel. This was explained, and as you can see there, it's very specific and accurate, like to the point where they were like, you know what, it's gonna be basically the 3 years and a half that you're seeing there, in between AD 27 and AD 31 is basically the years of the El Ministerio de Cristo, up until his crucifixion. So it's like, it's very detailed, and uh, I honestly, when I look at this, I was telling Ivan, like, when I look at this, I'm like, I don't really know exactly how to explain it all. My sister knows I've struggled with it, but to me, it's just fascinating, how exact and precise the prophecy can be, and it's all there in Daniel for us to go ahead and dig deeper in and study it, so we can become more convinced of what's going on. And it's very important because the the lesson asks us, what's going on here and during this time, and what happens, at AD 1844. And this is probably like very important to highlight. Does anybody want to share what happened specifically 1844? It's right there on the screen, and why it has such significance. No?
I read what it says on the screen. It says, investigative judgment begins. So that's when we're all put on trial.
Yeah. So I see that time basically, from AD 34 to AD 1844, where it's a time of just basically a chaotic time here in the world. Uh, Sin is multiplied, seen everywhere. And at that time, in 1844, God says, all of this is happening, but the judgment is starting. And not that now, there's no longer sinner, that the judgment has stopped, but it's very crucial time that we're living in, because we are so near the end of the prophecy and the end of times. You want to stop the sharing? You want to share anything?
I did want to add something, and it's just for clarification. I mean, you guys did a good job. It's just when I was studying this too, I got confused, and I got. Okay, you keep sharing that real quick, please. I just got confused too, and I was like, wait, why isn't it 1843? You know?
Yeah.
And I like mine, right? I still got confused, but so I'm just gonna explain it real quick, just for clarification purposes. But ignore my handwriting. I'm using my mouse.
Yeah.
All right. So pretty much what's happening is in regular math, right? The way we learn is that you have a value from -1 to 0, and from 0 to 1. These two equal 2, right? That's 2. But in time, pretty much we were at 1. We were at 1 BC. Sorry, and then we were at 1 AD. So there was never a year 0. That's why you won't jump from -1 or 1 BC to 1 AD, and that is 1 year, and that is how you get to 1844 and not
Exactly.
1843. So
instead of 2 jumps, it's just that 1 jump, you know. So instead of that's where you lose 1. You lose 1 little thing, and I was about to get confused, but I'm glad you drew it out, man. That's a good drawing. All right. Yeah. So.
Well, I just want to add something real quick. Like, it's crazy because like, if we go back to that year of like before 1844, like there was really nobody that understood this. You know, they all thought it would be like 1843, and then well, they thought it would be like in between 1843 and 1844, but none of them really had the idea of putting the 0. You know, thinking about the 0. And it's a mistake that a lot of us make. It's not something that like, oh man, you know, I'm gonna die, kind of thing. It's just something that it's just really interesting. This prophecy that is so real. But
One of the last things that we're seeing within the prophecy is la tipología, typology. And basically how I've been able to understand it is it's kind of like just another element, right, of writing in prophecy. There's metaphors that you guys could come across, foreshadows, and typology is just another element of this writing, right? And what it is basically, I understand it as an example, right? And a true example. Like it says in the lesson, dice que la tipología se centra en personas, hechos o instituciones reales del Antiguo Testamento basados en una realidad histórica, pero señalan a una realidad mayor en el futuro. So, they do, sí tienen su cumplimiento, se cumplen ¿verdad? Vemos muchos cumplimientos en el pasado y muchas de esas cosas nos preparan y son ejemplos para nosotros para poder en el futuro, ¿verdad? Saber cómo, se podría decir, comportarnos o cómo ver a Dios o cómo fortalecer y creer en Él.
So we wanted to read 1 Corinthians 10, 1 through 13. Would somebody like to read it? Please.
Grace that you read it.
1 Corinthians 10, what?
1 through 13.
8?
1 through 13. Here.
Okay, 10, 1 through 13. Okay. It says, moreover, brethren, I do not want you to be unaware that all our fathers were under the cloud, all passed through the sea. All were baptized into Moses in the cloud and in the sea. All ate the same spiritual food, and all drank the same spiritual drink. For they drank of the spiritual rock that followed them, and that rock was Christ. But with most of them God was not pleased, for their bodies were scattered in the wilderness. Now these things became our examples, to the intent that we should not lust after evil things as they also lusted. And do not become idolaters, as were some of them. As it is written, the people sat down to eat and drink and rose up to play. Nor let us commit sexual immorality, as some of them did, and in one day 23,000 fell. Nor let us tempt Christ, as some of them also tempted and were destroyed by serpents. Nor complain, as some of them also complained and were destroyed by the destroyer. Now all these things happened to them as examples, and they were written for our admonition, upon whom the ends of the ages have come. Therefore, let him who thinks he stands take heed lest he fall. No temptation has overtaken you except such as is common to man. But God is faithful, who will not allow you to be tempted beyond what you are able, but with the temptation will also make the way of escape, that you may be able to bear it. 13.
All right. Thank you, Grace. I know it's a long couple verses, but we can see here that it talks about the Exodus, which is a book in the Bible, but it's also like an action happening from when God, the Israelites and Moses. But other than that, how would these verses that we just read relate to us today? Like, what do y'all think? Like, how would they be able to relate to us?
I think that anything is found in the Bible is just to serve as example for us and tell us what to do and what not to do. So learning from other people's mistakes, we don't commit those same mistakes.
Right. Somebody else think anything too?
So, I don't know if you were gonna say that, or if I'm included in it. Yeah, in the Exodus, or while the Israelites were in the desert, um, we know that they complained a lot. They God punished them. I didn't realize how much punishment they did receive. Um, because of their sins against God, and it's interesting because um, it definitely relates to us in the sense that even now, when we might find ourselves in like the desert, right? Or we might find ourselves with uh, tenemos ciertas incomodidades. They complain about food. They complain that maybe it was better for them to be in Egypt. Sometimes we complain about things that are inconvenient for us. We may think like that, but we make those same mistakes now, to forget that Jesus has taken us out of a place that we did not want to be at, and he's blessing us now. So, yeah, it may be hot in the desert. You may be eating the same food, but this was a special food that they had, there may I'm sure there was, complications throughout their whole experience, but did God not lead them every day, And so that's what we have to think about now. Life is not easy, it'll be like a desert, will be like the Israelites. And this typology here is very clear in the sense that we now will also have, or be maybe some of us too quick to complain and fall into temptations, and because of our own consequences, because of our own actions, suffer the consequences that are tied to those actions, which unfortunately, like for the Israelites, a lot of them got sick, a lot of them died at the desert, and there's some examples there. I don't know if you want to.
So, does anybody else have anything to share about how like it relates to us?
Yeah.
Not.
So something I wanted to mention was like, yeah, like whenever the Israelites, they were like complaining and given to their like, I guess, desires, like when all these things happen, like they were really showing that they were doubting God. They were doubting his character. They were not, they were showing such doubt that their love for him was really failing. And so they started they started getting distracted and giving into their desires of their flesh, So it's like to me, that's something that definitely can apply to us today. Like what can lead us to complain? What is it? What makes us do that, you know? And so I think it's very important that we recognize that we ourselves, we can also do the exact same mistakes and become weak because we don't have a relationship with God and we start doubting him and
Yeah.
and doubt his character.
Right. One of the things that I find like interesting is that if you read the book of Judges, or in Spanish Jueces, like there's so many times where it says, and after this person died, they went back to rebelling against God or forgot about God. And then someone came up, like many of us know about, like Samson. He came up, they were doing good ish. And then when he died, you know, they went back to forgetting about God. Like there's so many times that it happens, and we think that just because, we live now, we're not the same people. Back then, sometimes in my head, whenever I read these characters, I'm like, if you really think about it, they have the same anatomy that we have. They have the same everything we have. Like, yeah, they have, like, basically, like, even though we call it like American Dream and all that, like they dream about doing things too. Like there's really no difference with them and us, and like this stuff can happen to us too. Like what happened to them can happen to us too, and I know that, after a while, probably being a Christian, we're like, man, it's not gonna happen. But in reality, like it can happen to anyone. And one thing that just popped to my mind right now, is the story of with Peter and Judas. Like Peter could have easily taken the same path Judas did, or Judah did, but he didn't. He chose to uh, stay connected with Jesus, and that was what he did. And many of us can also take paths of people who you know don't like God or don't want to do anything with him, but um, like the First Corinthians said, God always gives us strength to endure those temptations and to be able to stay connected to him and all that. So I don't know, just something I thought. But does anybody else want to share something? If not, we're just gonna read some examples about typology, uh, and if you can go to Matthew 12:40, I think this is one of the clearest examples of typology. I'll go ahead and read it. So Matthew 12:40 says, "For as Jonah was 3 days and 3 nights in the belly of the great fish, so will the Son of Man be 3 days and 3 nights in the heart of the earth." So we can see a connection between the story of Jonah and the story of the Son of Man, which most of us know will be Jesus. How Jonah was in the belly of this fish 3 days, and then how Jesus was basically in the tomb those 3 days.
There's also another example in John 3:14 and 15, which I really like. John 3:14 and 15 says, "And as Moses lifted up the serpent in the wilderness, even so must the Son of Man be lifted up, that whoever believes in him should not perish but have eternal life." Um, so we know, right? We were just talking about the Exodus and some of the things that happened in the desert, and this is also a very clear one. Just like the serpent was the salvation for those who were sick at that time and just needed to look at it, so that they wouldn't die. That's what Jesus is to us now. That one hope that we can always look to, and it's very beautiful to think about that because even though we're gonna face temptations and hard times, just like the Israelites did, God always gave them a way out through Him. So it's not easy, right? To There's so many things that you're gonna come across in your lifetime, and I think this is just uh, really become one of my favorite verses. I know that I used to say Juan 3:16, but it's just to me like so uh, magnificent how God never abandons you. And I was even telling Ivan like it's interesting to think about how every time um, they drifted away from God, the Israelites, every time He came back to them. One would think like in our time now, like let's say if a girl is going after a guy every single time, or if a guy is chasing a girl every single time, and every single time this person cheats on him, like what, we're done. And then you go back and you keep going back, you would think of that person as a fool. So it's like it's interesting because that's what God is doing, and not that He's a fool, because He does have the power at the end, and He will, um, put out sin. So it's just His mercy being shown every single time uh, through history, through prophecy, through us. Just it's great mercy. And I just wanted to finish, saying that uh, these things that we're studying, we sometimes don't understand very clearly, very detailed, but I don't want to get discouraged, and I would just encourage everybody or anyone who's watching to um, not be discouraged by the more complicated parts of the Bible, such as the prophecy parts, and get into it and read a little bit more and study, because this is essentially, I would think, probably the most important things to consider and to study, right? Because if we don't know prophecy, if we don't know, we don't have a clue of what's going on, what happened, and where we're heading, then we will be lost, forever. So I just wanted to say to y'all on Zoom, thank you for being with us. We had a Kahoot, but it's not gonna play out well right now. So yeah, we'll do it another time, or we'll modify it or something. I don't know if anybody else wanted to share something.
Yeah, this is kind of a little bit unrelated. I'm about to go on a little tangent, but it's a thought I wanted to share. So I used to always look at prophecy as some like foreign thing that we're not really a part of, But I remember when we were studying Daniel, and we were studying specifically Daniel 11, the detail it has to mentioning some characters like Alexander the Great. And I asked my dad, do you think if Alexander the Great read Daniel, he would recognize himself as part of the prophecy? And my dad said, yeah, absolutely. And I thought, I'm like, well, the Pope knows his active role in prophecy. He knows what he's going to do. He knows about the National Sunday Law. He knows when he's going to do that because he knows prophecy and he knows his role, even if it's not a good one. And a lot of times it's the bad guys, if we want to say, that know and have clearly defined their role, but it's us that doubt. We have the choice. Which part of prophecy do you want to be in? Which part of history do you want to be in? And the devil knows prophecy. He knows the Bible, but we are the ones that need to study it a lot more, because then we're caught on the wrong side. And it's not because we don't know, it's because we didn't pay attention to God was telling us in the first place. Yeah, I don't know if that made sense.
Yeah. Anybody? If not, we can.
Yeah, I definitely want to agree that it's very important to try to understand, because we got to be prepared. It shouldn't come to like what's coming. It shouldn't be a surprise to us. It shouldn't be a surprise. It will be a surprise to many, many, many people. But the Bible itself tells you that it doesn't want you to be surprised. It wants you to be ready.
Yeah.
And the only way you're going to be ready is as you actually read the Bible. And try to understand it, and be led by the Holy Spirit, so that whenever things start changing and prophecy is really happening clearly, will be clear to us, and so that when it does happen, we'll just stay firm and really believe and rejoice that Jesus is coming, and that the word of God is truth, rather than the trials and the tribulations. They come and you're like, what? Like, why is God doing this? Like, and then you start doubting. So instead of being like reacting like, what's happening, and like this must not be real, this whole Bible, have I been wasting my time? When in reality, the more you understand, you should, when these things happen, you should rejoice, that is actually happening, that this is the truth, you know?
There's many reasons why, you know, you should and you would benefit from it. Um, Not anyone specifically, but everyone in general. It's interesting because the other day I was thinking, like, I don't know why, if it's just because I'm growing older, and not like I'm not old, right? But like just because I've matured, like I've paid more attention to this, but like I've seen the interest that even like friends from outside of church take in some religious matters, you know, and they ask or they're studying. And I had this one friend telling me, sharing with me that she was like, you know, studying. I don't remember exactly what it was, but she was like, yeah, like what parts of, you know, the Bible, or like what stuff do you know, or what can you share, or what's more interesting to you? And I told her the prophecy was really interesting to me, right? And she was like, oh yeah. She was like, that's just really scary. And I was like, I feel you. Like I understand what you're saying, because there was a point where when I didn't know anything and I just thought about the end of times, or I just heard the word prophecy and I would get scared. I remember there was a good pastor that I really liked. I forgot what his name was.
Rocky.
El Pastor Marroquin. Menu, you probably remember him? And I remember that every time he would go to church, I would get like this weird feeling, because I would get like excited to see what he was gonna share, because his teachings were very interesting. But at the same time, I would get a little scared, because I'm like, man, all right, here he comes. Let's see what he brings, and let me brace myself, you know. So we're gonna be put in situations like that for sure, or at least other people around us are gonna have these feelings, questions, thoughts, and information. So we have to know, you know, what's happening. So, like Grace said, um, we stand correctly and firm in our faith, and not be frightened by any of it. You know, rather um, be joyful, because you know soon we'll be in a happier place. So that's all I have to say. Thank you guys. I don't know if you have anything to say, or if you just want to pray.
More
All
than
right,
anybody else. You have any last words, Joanna?
Put on the spot.
That way that everyone's comment, you know, is only
It's only
for
fair.
No, I was just like, while Marlon was talking about the Pastor Marroquin and like how he was like scared and everything, it just kind of took me back to the childhood whenever I think it was like you and my sister would watch this movie, and then me and Becky would just like hide somewhere because we're like, no, we're not watching that. I don't know what movie it was,
You're
but
talking
I
about
just,
like I think I know what movie you're talking about. It's like the one that they've shown at church too. It's
yeah,
called
It was the Amazing Facts one, the Eventos de los Últimos.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
And I
I
think a
don't
lot
know.
of that has to do with just not knowing, you know, because now that we're older,
yeah.
we understand it's not as scary anymore. It is scary if you're not in the correct mindset and you don't really know what's going on because you think you're going to die, but knowing you have hope, you know, it's not that scary anymore.
I'm not gonna lie, and I don't care who sees it or hears it, because this was a while ago. But um, I remember one time they were showing La Última Batalla or something. I think that's what the movie's called.
Yeah.
At church, and I started crying, and I walked out. My mom walked out of the church with me, because I was like, man, I don't want to die. Like, I don't want these plagues. Like, I don't know exactly everything in the movie, but I was scared, and I'm not gonna lie to you. I went outside and I was crying because I was so scared. And so I was like, you know, I was a child, in other words. But yeah, like, you know, don't let that happen to you, basically, especially because you know.
I mean, it is true. I mean, it is scary to a certain point. I mean, we even see Peter, right, when he neglect or denied Jesus 3 times. And I think, you know, I still think of the times for like Stephen, you know, how he died stoned, right? But it says that in the moment of his death, he, you know, looked up to the sky and said, you know, Father, forgive me, right? So it's just, I mean, you know, we got to have that faith that, you know, yeah, hard times are coming for sure. But regardless of the situation that we're in, just have faith that God is in control, you know. We were definitely created to live and not to die. And that's why we fear death, you know. And that's always, as a human, in a human standpoint, we're always going to fear death. But
Yeah.
at the end of the day, you know, we got to have that faith that God is in control. He's coming for a second time. We've been preparing for this day, and have faith, you know. We're all going to go to heaven together, and just, you know, keep sharing the gospel, keep reaching out to other people that haven't heard it, you know, help other people prepare for this. And we'll be happy.
Yeah.
You know, before I came to this church, I remember whenever someone would talk about prophecy, I would just like zone out because it was so hard for me to focus because I was like, everyone has so many different opinions. I just heard so many different opinions. I was thinking, you know what? We'll see when we get there. We'll see who's right when we get there, right?
Yeah.
And then finally, like when I came here, I was like, wait, that's not the right mentality to have because it's like, how am I gonna be ready? There's so many ways that it says in Revelation that we're gonna be fooled, and if you don't know that it's gonna happen, you're gonna get fooled. You know, you're gonna get tricked. And it's like, so we really do have to prepare for this. It's not something to take lightly or be like, we'll like cross that bridge when we get there. It's not one of those things.
Yeah.
So,
Guys, thanks again, and I'll see y'all soon. We'll have a word of prayer to end. I'll pray. Padre nuestro que estás en los cielos, santificado sea tu nombre, Señor. Te damos gracias por este día más que nos has dado con salud en medio de todas las dificultades, Señor. Sabemos que tú estás con nosotros y ayúdanos para que nunca nos desanimemos, que cualquier cosa, ¿verdad? Que no sea fácil, tú estés ayudándonos para que entendamos que no estamos solos, Señor, y que vale la pena siempre estudiar y estar al lado tuyo, aunque seamos los únicos. Te pedimos que seas con nuestras familias el resto de este día, el resto de esta semana, que nos ayudes a todos, también los hermanos de la iglesia y los otros jóvenes, Señor. Te pido una bendición especial sobre ellos y te pedimos que nos des siempre el entendimiento o que nos ayudes por lo menos, ¿verdad?, a entender mejor cada vez que estudiamos la Biblia para poder seguir aprendiendo y estar preparados para los tiempos finales y cuando tú vengas por nosotros. Gracias, Señor, por ser bueno con nosotros. En el nombre de Jesús. Amén.
Amen.
Alright,
Quick announcement. Starting next Saturday, the Sabbath school lesson for you is going to be at 3 p.m. And just share the word for people who want to join. Cool. Thanks. See y'all.
Bye.
Good afternoon, guys.
Yes.